I'm not talking about the silence that comes after peace. I'm talking about the silence that comes after pain. See, a broken man doesn't always bleed on the outside. No bandages, no crutches, no cast. But inside, it's chaos. His thoughts race like wild horses. His spirit limps through the day, and his heart's been stitched together with disappointment and duct tape. A broken man often appears calm on the surface, but beneath that exterior, there's a storm raging inside. His silence is not a sign of peace or contentment. It's the absence of the chaos within. There's a war happening inside him. Confusion, fear, sadness, anger, all swirling together, threatening to break free. Yet no one sees this turmoil. No one hears the screams echoing in his mind. On the outside, he looks like he's holding it together. But inside, the weight of his emotions is crushing it. It's easy to assume that a man who is quiet is at peace. We often mistake silence for calmness. But for a broken man, that silence is the loudest thing in the room. It's the noise of all the things he's trying to suppress. Feelings of loss, betrayal, rejection, and failure. Every time someone asks, "How are you?" he answers with a polite smile, even though inside he's drowning. He doesn't want to burden anyone with his pain, so he keeps it to himself, hoping that somehow it'll go away. But it doesn't. It only grows stronger, eating away at him bit by bit, until the weight is unbearable. The broken man often carries a deep, unspoken sadness. It's the kind of sadness that doesn't show on his face. His eyes may not glisten with tears, but inside, he's on the verge of breaking down. He's been through so much. Perhaps he's lost someone he loved, or maybe life has handed him a series of crushing blows that left him feeling helpless and defeated. He's been let down, betrayed, and abandoned. And now, he doesn't know who he can trust. He feels like a stranger in his own skin, unsure of who he is anymore, or what he's even fighting for. This kind of pain is silent. It doesn't demand attention, but it's always there, lurking in the background, weighing heavily on his heart. The broken man often feels like he has to carry the burden alone. He's been taught that asking for help is a sign of weakness, that showing vulnerability makes him less of a man, so he holds it all in. He suffers in silence, believing that his pain is something he must endure by himself. He doesn't want to be seen as weak, and he certainly doesn't want to burden others with his struggles. So he isolates himself, not because he doesn't care about the people around him, but because he cares too much. He doesn't want them to see him like this. But here's the truth. We all face struggles, and not all of them are visible. A person can be smiling on the outside, but inside they might be broken. A man can walk into a room full of people and still feel entirely alone. His mind is consumed by thoughts he can't escape. His heart aches for things he can't have, and his spirit feels weighed down by the weight of his own soul. Yet, on the outside, he appears fine. People look at him and see strength, but they don't see the fragility underneath. They don't know that he's fighting battles that no one else can see. The internal struggle of a broken man is often dismissed. He might be labeled as quiet or cold or distant, but in reality, he's doing everything he can to keep it together. He's fighting a battle that's invisible to everyone around him, and it takes incredible strength to do so. Every day, he's battling the emotions he doesn't know how to express, the pain he doesn't know how to let go of, and the fear that he'll never be whole again. It's a battle that doesn't end when he goes to sleep. It follows him into his dreams and wakes up with him when he opens his eyes in the morning. So when you see a man who is silent, don't assume he's at peace. Don't assume that he's okay. Behind that silence, there might be a world of pain that he's too afraid to share. And while he might seem distant, remember that his silence isn't a rejection of you. It's a reflection of the internal battle he's fighting alone. Recognize that sometimes the quietest people are the ones carrying the heaviest burdens. And just because you don't see the pain doesn't mean it's not there. When a man pulls away, it's not always because he's lost interest or doesn't care anymore. In fact, It's often the opposite. He pulls away because he cares too much. He's trying to protect himself, his heart, and sometimes even the people around him from further emotional damage. It's a response born out of the desire to shield himself from more hurt, even if that means distancing himself from the very people he wants to keep close. At times, a man who is emotionally hurt may feel overwhelmed by his feelings. His emotions become too much to handle, too heavy to carry, and too intense to express in any meaningful way. When he pulls away, it's his way of trying to regain control over a situation that feels out of his hands. He doesn't want to make things worse. He doesn't want to lash out or say something he'll regret. Instead, he retreats into himself, thinking that if he isolates long enough, the storm inside him will settle. This distancing is not an act of neglect or indifference. It's not that he doesn't care about the people around him. He might care deeply, maybe even more than he's ever cared for anyone before. But the problem is, his heart is too fragile at that moment. The pain he's feeling is too raw, and every interaction, every word, feels like it might be the last straw to break him. He's trying to avoid the emotional explosion he fears is just around the corner, so he pulls away, hoping that the space will give him the time he needs to heal. Well, it's a form of self-protection. When a man has been hurt, whether it's through betrayal, rejection, loss, or disappointment, he may feel like he's no longer in control of his emotions. The fear of being vulnerable, the fear of being hurt again, becomes overwhelming. And in that fear, he pulls away because it feels safer. It feels like the only way to avoid further damage, to avoid putting his heart in a position where it can be broken again. But pulling away is not an easy thing to do. It's not a decision made lightly. The emotional pull of wanting to be close to someone, of wanting to connect, can be incredibly strong. But for a man who is hurt, the pull to protect himself is even stronger. He doesn't want to hurt the other person, and he doesn't want to be hurt again, so he chooses to retreat into himself. It's a desperate attempt to regain some control over a situation that feels like it's slipping away. Sometimes he'll pull away because he doesn't know how to process what he's feeling. He might not have the words to explain the depth of his hurt or the emotional maturity to navigate the complexities of his emotions. So instead of trying to express it and risk making things worse, he withdraws. He stays silent, not because he doesn't care, but because he cares so deeply that he's afraid of saying the wrong thing or doing something that will cause more pain. It's also important to understand that pulling away doesn't mean a man has given up. It doesn't mean he's lost hope. It simply means that he needs space to work through his feelings, to heal from the wounds that are still fresh, and to regain the emotional strength he needs to face the world again. It's not a permanent action. It's temporary, and often it's a step toward healing. In relationships, when a man pulls away, it's crucial not to assume that he no longer values the connection. Instead, it's important to recognize that he might be trying to protect the bond by giving himself the space to process and heal. If he truly cares, he'll come back, but he needs time to regain his emotional balance. Pushing him further away or demanding answers when he's not ready to speak can only deepen the rift. Pulling away is an act of self-preservation, not a sign of disinterest. It's a man's attempt to protect the people he loves from the emotional burden he's carrying. And in that retreat, there's a quiet plea for understanding, for patience, and for the space to heal. It's not rejection. It's a survival mechanism, a way to protect both his heart and the hearts of those he holds dear. True strength does not lie in hiding pain or pretending it doesn't exist. Strength is not measured by how well you can mask your emotions or put on a brave face for the world. The real strength comes when a person, especially a man, can admit that they are hurting, that they are struggling, and that they are vulnerable. In a world that tells men to be tough, to never show weakness, the idea of vulnerability can feel like a betrayal. It's as if admitting vulnerability is admitting failure. But the truth is, it's the opposite. Vulnerability is not a weakness. It is one of the most powerful expressions of strength a person can demonstrate. A broken man, especially one who has been carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders, often struggles to show his vulnerability. He has been the one people turn to for support, guidance, and stability. He has been the rock for others, the one who holds everything together, even when his own world is falling apart. There's an expectation, sometimes unspoken, sometimes self-imposed, that he has to be strong, unshakable, and reliable at all costs. So when his own pain becomes too much to bear, he doesn't know how to let it out. He doesn't want to let anyone down, especially those who rely on him. And so he keeps it inside, thinking that by doing so, he's protecting others from his struggles. But what this broken man fails to see is that by hiding his pain, by pretending he's okay when he's not, he's denying himself the opportunity to heal. He's denying himself the ability to process what he's going through. The more he bottles it up, the heavier the weight becomes, and eventually it will crush him. Strength is not about never feeling pain. It's about having the courage to face it, to sit with it, and to allow others to see it. It's about allowing yourself the grace to be human, to show that you are not invincible, and to accept that it's okay to ask for help. Vulnerability, when embraced, can be incredibly freeing. It takes more courage to admit that you are struggling than it does to continue pretending that everything is fine. The broken man who allows himself to be vulnerable opens the door to true healing. He gives himself permission to grieve, to mourn, and to process the emotions he has been holding back for so long. He doesn't have to carry the weight alone anymore. Admitting vulnerability means he can finally share the burden with someone who is willing to listen, to support, and to help him heal. In many ways, vulnerability is the greatest form of strength. It takes an immense amount of courage to allow others to see you in your rawest, most authentic state. It takes strength to say, I need help, or I'm not okay. In a world that prizes stoicism and self-reliance, admitting vulnerability is a powerful act of defiance. It says, I will not be ashamed of my pain. I will not let it define me. I will face it, and I will rise from it. Moreover, embracing vulnerability allows a person to connect with others on a deeper level. When a man admits that he is hurting, when he opens up about his struggles, it creates space for others to do the same. It fosters real connection, real empathy, and real understanding. We all have our battles, and when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we show others that it's okay to be human, to have flaws, and to not have it all together. This in turn creates a safe environment for healing, both for the person who is hurting and for the people who are walking alongside them. The broken man who finds strength and vulnerability will not only heal himself, but he will also inspire those around him. He will show them that it's okay to be vulnerable, that it's okay to ask for help, and that real strength doesn't come from holding everything in. It comes from knowing when to let go, when to open up, and when to trust that others will be there to support you through the storm. In the end, vulnerability is not a weakness. It is the most powerful tool we have to face our pain, to heal, and to become whole again. True strength is not about being unbreakable. It's about having the courage to be broken and still stand tall. It's about allowing yourself to be seen, to be heard, and to be human, flaws and all. And that, my friend, is where real power lies. When a man is caught in the grip of emotional turmoil, he may appear cold, distant, or even detached from the world around him. On the surface, it seems as though he's shutting others out, withdrawing from relationships, and retreating into himself. But the truth is, what others don't see is the invisible war raging inside of him. This silence isn't a reflection of indifference or apathy. It's a form of self-preservation, a way for him to protect himself from the overwhelming emotions he feels but can't express. A man in emotional turmoil often feels like he's drowning in his own mind. His thoughts are clouded with fear, anger, confusion, and sadness. Each one of these emotions is like a wave crashing over him, and no matter how hard he tries to stay afloat, they keep pulling him under. It's a constant battle, one that no one else can see. He can't simply turn off his emotions or shut them out, but at the same time, he doesn't want to burden others with the weight of his inner conflict. So he becomes silent. He withdraws. He shuts down, not because he doesn't care, but because he doesn't know how to handle what's going on inside of him. The silence of a man in emotional turmoil is often misunderstood. People may think that he's being rude or cold, or that he's pushing others away intentionally. But what they don't realize is that he's trying to avoid an emotional explosion. He's trying to protect the people he loves from the storm inside him that he can't control. The last thing he wants is to say something he'll regret or to lash out in frustration. So he retreats into himself, hoping that time and space will help him process what he's feeling and give him the clarity he needs to move forward. This internal battle can be exhausting. The war inside him is constant, like a never-ending fight between his desires, fears, and regrets. He may feel like he's torn between two opposing forces, the desire to connect with others and the need to protect himself from further hurt. On one hand, he wants to share his struggles, to talk about what's going on inside. But on the other hand, he's afraid of being judged, misunderstood, or rejected. It's a tug-of-war between the need for support and the fear of vulnerability. And so he remains silent. What's even more painful is that this silence often comes with a sense of isolation. While everyone around him may continue on with their lives, unaware of the war going on inside him, he feels completely alone in his struggle. He can be surrounded by people, but still feel like the weight of the world is on his shoulders. No one can see the burden he's carrying. No one can hear the battle that rages in his heart. And so he suffers in silence, fighting a battle that feels too big to win. But this battle is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. The fact that he continues to fight, that he doesn't give in to the chaos inside him, is proof of his resilience. He may not show it, but he is stronger than he knows. Every day he is facing down his demons, trying to make sense of the emotions that threaten to overwhelm him. And even though he might appear cold or distant, there is a fire inside him that refuses to go out. In time, the man who has been fighting this internal battle may begin to heal. He may eventually open up to the people around him, share the pain he's been carrying, and let others in. But until then, his silence is a form of self-preservation. It's not a rejection of others, but a defense mechanism. He's not trying to push anyone away. He's simply trying to hold himself together long enough to make it through the storm. If you encounter a man who seems cold or detached, understand that there may be more going on beneath the surface than meets the eye. His silence isn't a sign that he doesn't care. It's a sign that he's fighting a war that no one else can see. And when he's ready, he will share that battle with you. Until then, his silence is not a refusal of connection, but a necessary step in his process of self-preservation and healing. The war inside may be brutal, but it's not one he's fighting alone. It's just that for now, he's doing it in silence. When a man pulls away, it's easy to misinterpret his actions. The first instinct might be to feel rejected, to assume that he no longer cares, or that he's choosing to distance himself for reasons that may seem personal or hurtful. However, the reality is often much more complex. The truth is that a man who retreats into silence or withdrawal is likely doing so for reasons that are deeply tied to his emotional state. He's not rejecting you, he's retreating in order to rebuild himself. And this process of healing requires understanding and compassion, not judgment. Many times, a man pulls away because he's overwhelmed by his own emotions or struggles that he feels he cannot express or share. He may be dealing with internal turmoil that others are unaware of, a battle he is silently fighting within himself. He could be experiencing deep pain, fear, uncertainty, or regret, but he might not know how to communicate those feelings. In such moments, the act of retreating can be his way of protecting both himself and the people around him from the weight of his emotions. It's not that he no longer values the connection, quite the opposite. It's because he cares so much that he feels the need to step back and process everything in silence before he risks causing any further harm. We often live in a world where emotional expression is encouraged only under certain conditions, and vulnerability is seen as a sign of weakness, especially for men. The societal pressures to remain strong, to hold everything together, and to be the rock for others can lead to internalized beliefs that expressing pain or uncertainty is unacceptable. As a result, many men feel they must hide their struggles, even if it means retreating from the people they care about. But this doesn't mean they don't need compassion or understanding. It means they are seeking the space to process what they're going through and to rebuild themselves before they can fully re-engage with others. When a man pulls away, it's crucial not to rush to conclusions. Don't immediately assume that his withdrawal is an indication of something wrong with you or the relationship. The need for space is not always about you. It's often about him. In the silence, he might be trying to gather the strength to face his emotions, to heal, or to gain clarity about his feelings. Forcing him to open up before he's ready, or pushing him to communicate when he's not emotionally prepared, can backfire. Instead of fostering understanding, it could further alienate him and make him feel misunderstood or pressured. What he needs in these moments is not criticism or impatience, but empathy, patience, the quiet reassurance that you see him not as distant or cold, but as someone who is going through something difficult. He needs the space to heal without feeling the weight of judgment or the burden of having to explain his every thought. Let him have the time he needs to reflect and to process his emotion. Offering him this kind of understanding creates an environment in which he can feel safe enough to eventually share what he's going through when he's ready. In relationships, it's important to recognize that pulling away isn't necessarily a sign of a dying connection. It may actually be a sign of a relationship that is still worth saving, one where both people understand the necessity of self-care and the time it sometimes takes to rebuild after emotional strain. When you offer understanding and patience, you show him that you respect his process and that you are willing to support him, even if it means giving him the space he needs. Furthermore, this space can allow him to return to the relationship stronger, more grounded, and more capable of truly connecting. A man who is given the time and understanding to heal is more likely to come back to the relationship with a renewed sense of clarity and emotional readiness. It also fosters a deeper level of trust because he will recognize that, despite his withdrawal, you are still there, offering love and support in the most meaningful way possible. So when a man pulls away, don't rush to judge him or assume that he no longer cares. Understand that he may be retreating to rebuild himself, to sort through his emotions, and to regain the strength he needs. Be patient, be compassionate. Offer him the space to heal. And remember, sometimes silence is the first step towards a deeper connection, one that is built on understanding, respect, and trust. If you find yourself pulling away, retreating into isolation as a way to cope with pain or emotional turmoil, know that it's okay to take that step back for a time. Sometimes withdrawing is necessary. It allows you the space to process your emotions, to heal, and to gain perspective. But it's important to recognize that isolation, though it may offer temporary relief, should not be a permanent solution. Healing and growth are not only possible, they are essential. The world still needs you, and you have the capacity to return stronger, wiser, and more resilient than before. When you're in the depth of pain or confusion, it can be hard to imagine a way out. The weight of your emotions, the burden of past mistakes, or the scars of past experiences may seem overwhelming. During these times, it may feel easier to shut everything out, to retreat into a space where you don't have to face the world or anyone else. But while isolation can provide temporary relief, it also carries the risk of letting you remain stuck in a cycle of pain and sorrow. It's important to remind yourself that you don't have to stay there forever. Healing is a journey, and it's okay to take the time you need to figure things out. But that time must also be a process of action, not passive stagnation. Healing requires effort. It requires stepping out of your comfort zone, confronting the parts of yourself that you've been avoiding, and learning to forgive yourself for for the things that have held you back. It requires acknowledging your pain, understanding it, and finding ways to move forward from it. The act of healing is not a quick fix, but a gradual process of growth, self-discovery, and transformation. And during that journey, remember that isolation is not the end of the road. It's just a chapter. Yes, it's important to give yourself the space to recharge, to process, and to reflect. But eventually you need to re-enter the world. You need to re-engage with the relationships, the responsibilities, and the passions that give your life meaning. The world around you still needs your energy, your wisdom, your unique perspective, and the gifts you have to offer. By pulling away, you may feel like you're protecting yourself, but you're also robbing the world of the value that only you can bring. You're more than your pain, more than your struggles, and the world needs you to step back into it. Not as the person you were before, but as someone who has learned, grown, and transformed through the hardships you faced. When you're ready to return, you'll be able to approach life with a renewed sense of clarity and purpose. The pain you've endured may have broken you in ways that you never thought you could heal from. But that brokenness is also where your strength lies. It's through our most difficult moments that we find the courage to rebuild ourselves, to face the world with an unshakable resilience. Each scar, each wound, and each painful lesson learned is a part of the foundation that will make you stronger. Healing also requires you to embrace the idea that growth comes with discomfort. It's not about going back to the way things were, or about pretending that you're okay before you are. It's about moving forward, understanding that pain is part of the human experience and that growth requires vulnerability. It's about having the courage to ask for help when you need it, to lean on others when you're too weary to stand alone, and to trust that things can get better, even if it doesn't feel that way in the moment. Remember that your growth will be a reflection of your efforts, your willingness to change, and your openness to embrace the new opportunities that come with healing. You will emerge from this process stronger than you think. The person you are becoming is someone who understands the value of patience, the importance of emotional self-care, and the power of resilience. The strength you will find in yourself is one that will allow you to face future challenges with confidence, knowing that no matter what life throws your way, you have the inner strength to endure and to overcome. So, if you are the one pulling away, don't let isolation become your permanent state. Healing and growth are waiting for you just beyond the horizon. Don't be afraid to step into the light, to rejoin the world, and to share your strength, wisdom, and resilience. The world still needs you, perhaps now more than ever, and you are ready to return, stronger and wiser than you ever imagined possible.